Hello and welcome to another Quaranstream. I am your host, JoeMagician. And today we'll be talking about one of the truly odd and powerful objects in the world of Westeros, glass candles. And yet, for one of the most bizarre magical objects in A Song of Ice and Fire, they are barely mentioned. They really only show up in Daenerys and Samuel chapters and the Pate prologue, and that's kind of it. That's all we get for them. Yet these sharp, twisty shards of rock inspire literally endless theories about them from A Song of Ice and Fire fans and how they may be used in the story. Today we'll be exploring what those candles are exactly, how do they work, and where their effects might actually be felt within the story. Before we get into all that though, if you guys could do me a favor and smash that like button, leave a comment if you're watching on replay. The almighty YouTube algorithm demands payment like a hungry weirwood. If we get to 150 likes on the stream, I will throw on my very handsome wizard hat, sitting right there behind me. 175, the very fancy Germ hat for the rest of the stream. Also, if you want to support the channel, consider signing up to Patreon for benefits like early episodes, patron Slack, the outline I just posted, all sorts of fun things. There's links I pinned in the chat, which is apparently a new feature. You can pin a comment. So there's links there to Patreon, reminders about super chats and super stickers, and also PayPal, which Amy's playing my role in the stream. Usually I derail things like that. Are glass candles dangerous dildos? Hey, if you want them to be. I also wanted to say thanks to two PayPal donations we got already. Danny McKay, he said, glass candles, I can dig it, $5. Very generous, appreciate it, Danny. And then $5 from Gerald Larson. Also, appreciate it very much. Very generous of you. Wow, apparently YouTube chat does not like the word dildo. Gerald says, keep up the good work. I'm curious about... I don't like this thing about the mobile app for PayPal. Maybe I have to use the desktop app. I'm curious about what role the Manderly fleet will have in A Song of Ice and Fire. Nothing to do with glass candles, but the Manderly fleet is one of those Chekhov's guns sort of things where George set them up really early. The Unvers and the Manderlys have been building boats ever since Bran and I forget who. Might have been Rob. I think it was Bran, though, at the Harvest Feast, where they were commanded to work together and rebuild the Stark fleet, which they haven't really had since Brandon the Burner burned all the ships in the north. Well, most of them, at least the ones they owned. So what role will they play? It's tough to say because there doesn't seem to be a fleet coming up the eastern side of Westeros. The attack from the Golden Company is going right at the Stormlands and the Crownlands, but they don't really seem to give a shit about the North. So the way that they might end up being useful is in terms of maybe an escape from the North for the named characters we know in Winterfell, run down the White Knife to the White Harbor, and try and escape the oncoming White Walkers and all that other kind of things. I don't really think they'll be used in combat. I think it'll just be used that way. Just as a mass evacuation. Oh yes, there's also some very happy birthdays out there. Aegon the 6th, one of my patrons. Also, the one and only poor Quentin, Emmett Booth. I almost talked about Quentin today, but decided I didn't have enough time to prepare for it to be able to talk intelligently on Quentin, so I went with glass candles. So give Emmett Booth out there a very happy birthday. And also, I believe it's Joanna Robinson's birthday, of Vanity Fair and Storm of Spoilers, and many, many, many podcasts. So if you guys know them, go ahead and shoot them a message on Twitter or tag them, or just happy birthdays all around. Let's hope for some very happy gifts over the next few days, to say the least. F's in chat for happy birthdays. I mean, that's true. I don't like my birthday. I don't like celebrating it. It's not always happy birthdays for everybody, but you know, if you do enjoy your birthday, then happy. It's your birthday too? Why is it everybody's birthday today? What's going on? What about October 3rd means everybody's birthday? I don't really know. But anyway, yeah, do all those things. I also wanted to highlight a review I got on Apple Podcasts, because by the way, you can listen to these as audio only versions if you look up the Wit and Wisdom of Joe Magician. Be sure it's available everywhere. Patty2347 says, I very knowledgeable, could listen to these podcasts all day. He's super knowledgeable and a joy to listen to. Thank you. I try my best. At least I have the a joy to listen to part down. Not always the super knowledgeable, but I try and make it up with lots and lots of research. New Year's babies? Is that what it is? Is it? Oh boy. Wait, 9 months ago from October. Yeah, these are January babies. Whoops. Hey, at least, yeah, that's a thing. You know, your parents hooked up on around New Year's. There you go. That's true. It is very cold in January. What else are you going to do? Play chess? I don't think so. Chess doesn't keep you warm. Wow, this is really, really diverged really fast from glass candles. Oh, Super Bowl babies, interesting. Thank you, Sandrix. This is about glass candles, Bernie, so let's go back and talk about that. So glass candles, the super magical weird objects. I got a quote here that I think is the one that George intended to explain things for the reader, at least like kind of, because when you first hear about them up until Samwell 5 in A Feast for Crows, there's not a lot of information about what the hell these things are or even what they can do. So the quote goes, "What feeds a dragon's fire? Marwyn seated himself upon a stool. All Valyrian sorcery was rooted in blood or fire. The sorcerers of the Freehold could see across mountains, seas, and deserts with one of these glass candles. They could enter a man's dreams and give him visions and speak to one another half a world apart, seated before their candles. Do you think that might be useful, Slayer?" Very good Marwyn there. Chef's kiss. Yeah, and that's sort of like the basic explanation there. You can, they're like communication devices. But yeah, like I was saying, these are very, very strange objects that are mentioned early on in A Clash of Kings only to Daenerys when she's in Karth, and then the entire topic is basically dropped, at least explicitly, until A Feast for Crows. The first quote comes from Xaro's own Daxos. He goes, "Xaro looked troubled, and so it was then, but now I am less certain. It is said that glass candles are burning in the house of Earthon Nightwalker that have not burned in 100 years. This also works very well with the ideas of wildfire, where quite a lot of there's a lot of speculation in the books from the Pyromancers that the reemergence of Dany's dragons has awakened a kind of fire magic in the world. And Xaro here is likely drawing the comparison between the two of them, that since these are Valyrian in origin and that they have not burned in 100 years, that this likely has to do with Dany and her dragons. And glass candles only be used 3 times because Quaith uses them only 3 times. I don't think so. I think they can be used as many times as you want. We'll go into how the Citadel acquired some, but I don't think there's any sort of like limit on it. He lists a bunch of other things too that seem vaguely connected to Dany in a weird way, but doesn't really. It's mostly that like the warlocks are excited and doing crazy things. But you know, there's always strange things in Karth, but the glass candles and this Earthon Nightwalker thing is certainly something that comes up and is this kind of like, I wonder what that is about. A very interesting question. And also, like, we're going to put a pin on that Earthon Nightwalker fellow, a character that does not appear in the books as far as we know, yet is mentioned almost constantly in conjunction with dragons and glass candles and weird magical things. Character we have not met. Maybe we haven't met them. And then, like I said, after this one mention, they basically disappear from the narrative until A Feast for Crows in the Pate prologue and Samwell 5, where George slams us with this information about them like he was cramming for an exam. It feels very, very similar to the way he used the Dance with Dragons prologue with Varamir Sixskins as a way to talk about skin changing and second lives and all these things that would be very important for understanding A Dance with Dragons and the Winds of Winter going forwards. It's one of those things that just feels like he's like, oh yeah, I want to use these things. I did not explain anything about them. Shit, my audience doesn't know what these are. They don't know how they work. I guess I have to explain them. And I do love that about George, where sometimes it just seems like it slips his mind. He's like, oh, you know, I've just been talking about these glass candles for so long. It's like these weird mentions. I'm sure my audience gets it. And then his editor's like, no one gets it. No one knows what you're talking about, George. Hey, Chrissy, how's it going? So the first big information dump we get is from Pate's prologue. This is the one where Jack and Hagar, most people assume it's Jack and Hagar. I'm pretty sure it's Jack and Hagar, shows up and kills Pate, steals his face to enter the Citadel. But before that, the novices spend quite a lot of time talking about dragons and glass candles and Marwyn and magic. The quote here goes, they were the worst kept secret of the Citadel. It was said that they had been brought to Old Town from Valyria 1,000 years before the Doom. Now, like, think about that. Brought from Valyria 1,000 years before the Doom. The Valyrians are notably not kind about giving up their magical objects. Valyrian swords can cost as much wealth as an entire lord has, can bankrupt them. Just like even when Valyria was, you know, not destroyed and these weren't rare objects, they were still insanely expensive. And somehow the Citadel acquired 4 of these glass candles, which are arguably much more valuable than a stupid sword, I guess. I mean, they're not stupid swords, but I mean, like, they're just kind of really sharp. And they can kill White Walkers. That's the main things they can do. And then it goes on to say, he heard there were 4, 1 was green and 3 were black, and all were tall and twisted. We go on to hear that they are used in a very particular ritual with the novices of the Citadel. They are locked in a vault with 3 glass candles in total darkness. They don't get any tools, they don't get any light, they don't get to study or anything. They are just kind of locked in, and over the course of the night, it's expected that they will try to light these glass candles. Oh, hang on a second. Let's center me a little bit. Okay, that looks better. And the Armin tells this story that you probably hear from most of the Elder Maesters, where it's like, oh, well, it's just a test to tell you about how, like, some things are beyond you, and there's higher mysteries, and there's no way to figure it out. There's things beyond your understanding, because everyone fails. Or at least they've been failing for 100 years, since the glass candles haven't been burning for 100 years, according to Quaithe and Zaro. So, I think this is actually one of the really funny moments of the Pate prologue, of which there aren't really that many. It's like a really good moment of humor, because you get the quote, lazy Leo bursts out laughing. Not possible for you, you mean? I saw the candle burning with my own eyes. And also, if you think back while you're reading this, you're like, wait, I've been told that the glass candles are burning already. So why are the Citadel so bad about doing this? Like, why can't they light these glass candles? There's something they're not telling the novices that Marwyn knows, because he has his lit, but it's not really clear what's going on there, why they are straight terrible about lighting these things, especially in the age after Dany has reawoken her dragons. It seems like Marwyn like realized the dragons were back and went boop, lit his candle. Scatler Rock says, are the glass candles an allegory for technology? They're like smartphones for me. I think that's absolutely what George was drawing on. He very much likes the idea of using concepts from advanced technology but putting them in a fantasy sense. But yeah, they're in some ways they are like smartphones or Zoom calls or anything. Jay Moray says, a man-made WeirNet. Yeah, I've heard that one too before, that these are essentially the Valyrian versions of the Weirwood net. And then also, the quote we get from Karth lets us know that this explanation from Armin and from the Citadel is just straight wrong. Quaithe is talking to Daenerys, and she says this: half a year gone, that man could scarcely wake fire from dragonglass. He had some small skill with powders and wildfire, sufficient to entrance a crowd while his cut purses did their work. He could walk across hot coals and make burning roses bloom in the air, but he could no more aspire to climb the fiery ladder than a common fisherman could hope to catch a kraken in his nets. So, if you think about this in the way that this is being described, Quaithe is saying that there's one thing here that's really hard to do, and that is climbing the fiery ladder, which is one of the real moments of high fantasy in A Song of Ice and Fire early on, where a guy conjures a fiery ladder out of thin air, climbs it, and then basically disappears. It's a really cool trick. But then the rest of them, she's like, everybody can kind of do these with a little bit of practice. She's like, oh, well, wakes fire from dragonglass. Easy, can do it. Use some skills and make wildfire. Yeah, totally. Anybody can learn to do that, like we see with the pyromancers. Walk across hot coals. That's actually a thing you can just do in real life. You can just run across hot coals and not really get hurt too bad. Make burning roses bloom in the air. Yeah, just like fire tricks. So that's the level that we're being told that lighting a glass candle's on. It's not difficult if you have one. It's like, Quaithe is like, yeah, as long as they're burning, anybody can do it. But the Citadel sucks. Westerosi FaceTime. Yeah, kinda. Yeah. We'll go into that in a little bit, like exactly what they do. But I just thought this was really interesting that it's very likely that if there are a lot more glass candles, that they're user-friendly, and that either on purpose or just by being stupid idiots, the archmaesters of the Citadel are not teaching their students how to do it, except Marwyn. Marwyn seems interested in letting his students be around lit glass candles and maybe even use them, because it's not like Samwell walks in and then Marwyn goes, aha, look at this glass candle, and then lights it. It's already lit. So yeah, it's this does give some kind of ideas to Marwyn's little speech about how, like, the Citadel wants to kill magic and nobody understands it and they want to create a world without it. Well, yeah, this is one of those ways that you can see that the not teaching of how to properly use glass candles and locking them in a room and essentially like cutting their hands and stuff on it, rather than like, it's a simple trick like we can show you, is very much an anti-knowledge thing coming out of the Citadel. And then we get a really long quote here from Samwell 5 after he sees the glass candle, and a discussion here with Marwyn. And a lot of you guys have been bringing this up in the chat, like, what are they made of? That kind of thing. And this whole paragraph is essentially just a knowledge dump from George. It's actually kind of unusual in how it kind of strays from narrative for a while, and Marwyn just sort of explains to the audience what the hell's going on. Oh yeah, slam that like button if you could. Get to 150 likes. We got 138 watchings so far. Thank you guys. Get to 150, I would appreciate it. Also, I'll put on a silly hat, which is always fun for all of us. All right, here we go. Here's the quote. Aside from that, the only light came from a tall black candle in the center of the room. The candle was unpleasantly bright. There was something queer about it. The flame did not flicker, even when Archmaester Marwyn closed the door so hard that the papers blew off a nearby table. The light did something strange to colors too. Whites were bright as fresh fallen snow, yellow shone like gold, reds turned to flame, but the shadows were so black that they looked like holes in the world. Sam found himself staring. The glass candle, the candle itself was 3 feet tall and slender as a sword, ridged and twisted, glittering black. Is that obsidian? Said the other man in the room, a pale, fleshy, pasty-faced young fellow with round shoulders, soft hands, and close-set eyes, and food stains on his robes. Call it dragon glass. Archmaester Marwyn glanced at the candle for a moment. It burns, but is not consumed. What feeds the flames? Asked Sam. What feeds a dragon's fire? Marwyn seated himself upon a stool. All Valyrian sorcery was rooted in blood or fire. The sorcerers of the Freehold could see across mountains, seas, and deserts with one of these glass candles. They could enter a man's mind and give him visions, and speak to one another half a world apart, seated before their candles. Do you think that might be useful, Slayer? He's such a sarcastic, like, dramatic guy. Marwyn, come on, man. Steph Lyon says, what reasons do the Maesters have to not like / trust magic? I get that they don't. What is their justification? Magic is brilliant. So, magic is brilliant if you have it. If you're one of the people that can use it, I mean, everything's great. You can be like a sorcerer king. But it's pretty shitty for the rest of the world, especially as we're going to talk about what these things can do. It's a pretty unfair advantage that makes for magically empowered dicks to take over the world. So if there's a reason, that's probably it. So yeah, we are told a few things here about the glass candles, that these are some kind of shards of obsidian, otherwise known as dragon glass, that are twisted in these weird spiral formations leading to a singular point. I don't think I have to say this, but that's not a natural thing. Like, obsidian does not naturally come from the ground in spiral shaped, like, nightmare sword things. The obsidian is usually found in big clumps of rocks or like sheets, because they are cooled magma, essentially. They come from volcanoes. This doesn't happen. So this appears to tell us that these were crafted by Valyrian fire mages. We hear elsewhere that the Valyrians can do amazing things with rock and stone. For instance, they could make buildings look like whatever they want. The demon roads are essentially perfect and straight. Dragonstone itself has some pretty unreal architecture. This is probably the same kind of thing, where the Valyrians had the ability to shape obsidian or dragon glass into kind of whatever shape they felt like. And so somebody's trade was probably making these, just like Valyrian steel swords. Maybe dragon breath. Yeah, that's a good point, Bernie. It could just be some kind of like earth magic-y things. Maybe something like Avatar. We haven't seen them use this kind of thing, but we're told that they could. So yeah, the glass candles are, I don't think you can like just take a piece of obsidian and then like do some magic-y stuff, or take out a lighter and on a tip or something like that, and all of a sudden you'll be able to see across the world. You should see these more as crafted objects. Crafted by fireworms. Oh god, what if it's fireworm poop? Oh, that'd be pretty crappy. The yolks. Yeah, pyroclastic. Their molecular structure makes them almost impossible to carve without fine modern tools. Exactly right, Jaded Redhead. You often see them chipped. You'll see them into arrowheads or spearheads. In fact, that's how the Children of the Forest use them. They don't have despite their immense magical power, they do not have the ability, or don't seem to want to, turn the obsidian they have in anything more complicated than simple carving tools. So yeah, percussion flaking. There's no way to do this with obsidian. So I think they'd work better on Dragonstone or somewhere else with so much of it. Yeah, definitely, especially when you know that the Valyria is powered by a whole bunch of volcanoes with lots of magma and lots of volcanic rock. Seems very likely that this is where one of the things they used them for. Also, like, the top of it is supernatural. We're told it's a multicolored flame with impossible colors. It also doesn't react to stimuli. Like, it's said that Marwyn slams the door and that it makes papers go flying. I have a candle right here, and just on its own, it's dancing all over the place. This flame does not move. So yeah, not normal, not a thing that can happen. And there's sort of a question here about, like, what is exactly happening with this dragon glass that is causing it to, have this crazy flame. Obsidian or dragon glass is called multiple times, like, frozen fire, as it's crystallized hardened magma from volcanoes. But you can't light obsidian. There's no mechanic in nature that allows you to draw out flame from it. It doesn't really burn, but what it does do is explode. Because of the way it's formed, it's cooled very, very quickly, so it can have air pockets within it or gas pockets, which, depending on the volcano, the gas may be explosive. If you heat up obsidian too far, then it literally does explode. Which is not great. Yeah, like, anything close to this, you would just have exploding glass candles. This is not a thing. You can't light obsidian. You can't do this on any rock, but especially not obsidian. And I think it has to do with how exactly they're lighting it. It's supernatural, so Marwyn goes on to tell us when he's talking about the glass candle that all Valyrian magic is founded in blood or flame. So I'm going to guess that this one is blood-based or something like that. That maybe the way you light it is, like, you prick your finger and then do something magical and poof, it goes up. Because as I said earlier, like, Quaithe doesn't think this is a big deal. Neither does Marwyn. He just has one lit like it's not a problem. So it would be something simple, especially because of the way they're supposed to be used. Like I was saying, user-friendly, basically. Sam just kind of walks up and he's like, oh my god, this is amazing. And some people have speculated if he started seeing through the flames right then. It kind of seems like he did. It didn't seem like he had to try too hard to do it. And Sam's not an inherently magical character, so yeah, it's got to be something simple like that. Like, prick your finger, put it on the right place on the glass candle, maybe right at the wick or something like that, or say some kind of magic words, and then poof, it turns on. iPhones can be explosive in certain circumstances. Yes, they can, especially if you watch tech destruction videos. There's a W there, so Vladimir R. I'm going to say Vladimir because I don't know how to pronounce that. Does Roderick Harlaw, the reader, have a glass candle? As he did challenge Euron, is he in contact with Marwyn through the glass candle? Do you see him as a spy for Team Daenerys? Nope, I don't think so. The glass candles are incredibly rare. Maybe they were not rare when they were made 1,000 years ago, which is maybe why the Citadel acquired 4, but I would be very, very surprised if Roderick Harlaw, of all characters, is one of the few people in Westeros that has these rare and very powerful objects. it might be that Marwyn is using his glass candle to contact Roderick, which actually we'll talk about now. So what can you use these for? Like, what I said, they're incredibly powerful, they're useful, so like, why? What do they do? So the first is it lets you, whoops-a-daisy. The first is it lets the user see across great distances to seemingly wherever they want in the world. Marwyn goes on to say, like, see through mountains, across deserts. It's essentially George's flamboyant way of saying anywhere. You turn one of these things on, you stare into it. If you, I guess, maybe like mentally think about what you want to see, and then you do. So that's extremely powerful spying technology. And it would go a long way to explain like why Valyria was so successful in their conquest. I mean, they did have dragons, but we see the Targaryens in Westeros, and they had problems with the Dornish. And the Dornish are not a military powerhouse. They just basically could hide from the dragons, and then they couldn't find them. Well, if you had glass candles, that would not be a problem anymore. You could use them to essentially find where the Dornish were hiding, show up with your dragon, roast the caves or the hidden camps or whatever they're doing, rather than Aegon and Visenya and Rhaenys showing up over and over again for years, just like totally failing at taking Dorne. Steph Lyon says, Mel sees images in her flames, but hers need interpreting. I wonder what the relationship between what she sees in the fire and what is seen in the glass candle. So it's implied that the way Marwyn describes it, that the glass candle is not like seeing in the flames, that it's not random, that you have some sort of control over it. That the flames, Melisandre just sees stuff. And then she goes, I don't know what that was. She can kind of ask, but it's not really clear what's going on. I would guess that the glass candles are far more accurate as long as you know what you're looking for, basically. And yeah, this goes on to say, why was Valyria so successful in their dominations of Essos? Well, they essentially had like satellite surveillance of their opponents, while everyone else was running around with swords and shields and information at the speed of riders and maybe ravens, but probably not ravens because we're talking Essos. So it's hard to beat that kind of technology, like you guys are talking about, with like iPhones and stuff like that, and streaming, like we're doing right now. This would be considered like, we're using it to have fun, and we're using it to talk about some books and some weird lore. But if you wanted to use this productively, this technology right here, which is essentially the same as what Marwyn's describing, would be far more powerful than dragons in terms of a tactical tool. Yes, I am a witch. This is true. Fun fact, I do actually work with a witch. That was... she's a cool person. Ask her about her covens and that stuff sometimes. Yeah, I agree with OG that Mel's magic is not the same as the magic of the glass candles. I don't think they're pretty much the same. Yeah, this is not productive. We're just having fun. The second one is, he says you can speak to someone half a world apart. So again, this is like modern cell phone technology or Zoom call or something like that. An extremely tactical game changer for Valyrian Freehold. And it's one of those things where the larger an empire gets, the more difficult it is to hold together, especially in ancient times, because like I was saying, the speed of messages is very, very slow. It's essentially the speed of a guy and a horse. So when you're trying to direct things from a central location, you have to cede quite a lot of control, and you really don't have any idea of what's happening over there. You just get reports, and you hope the reports are right. But with a glass candle, you could essentially, if you're sitting in the Valyrian Freehold, if you want to know how things are going in, let's say, Pentos, fire up the glass candle, essentially call whoever's over there in Pentos and say, hey, what's going on? Give me an update. I want to see what's going on over there. And it's it's a dramatic advantage for the Valyrians. It really does go to explain why they had a stable giant empire in a world where giant empires tend to fall pretty quickly. Yeah, candle assisted astral prediction, more or less. It's a fantasy version of a sci-fi concept, which George is very fond of doing. Glass candles versus flame visions are like foot messengers versus the internet. Yeah, this is kind of like a lot of people have drawn connections between this and the Weirwood Network, which is not, the Weirwood Network's never, I don't think it's actually said in the books. I think that's the name that we gave it, but it's essentially the idea that Bloodraven, when he contacts Bran, and kind of Jojen is more or less the same thing, where he talks to them from beyond the wall to the Winterfell and the neck, and is able to communicate across distances that would take days or weeks normally. Jon Snowden. Oh my goodness. There was actually a good question up here. Mary Eka says, why didn't the Maesters use glass candles against the Targs during the invasion? It's a good question. It's not certain that they didn't. Even if you have the ability to essentially spy on anybody in the world, the Targaryens still had dragons. And if you can't convince like your local king to do what you want with your amazing knowledge, then it kind of goes to waste. And the Citadel is not a military organization. Although the Hightowers did stay out of the conflict. So perhaps they did warn the Hightowers at the time that, like, we've got no shot. Like, we were watching what's happening and everybody's dead. Like, don't get involved. Let the gardeners die. Maybe you'll take over. Robert says, Aegon visited the Citadel before the conquest. Maybe some kind of deal was struck. Yeah, absolutely could happen. The Targaryens have gone to Old Town quite a lot throughout their history for various deals. And there's also that one peculiar story about the High Septon who went to the Starry Sept and essentially wildly hallucinated for a few days and came out and said, if we go against anyone that goes against the Targaryens will die in flame or something like that. I mean, that's just practical, but you never know. And that gets to kind of the third use of glass candles. And this is the most dangerous one, I would say, and the one that we've probably seen the most. And this is, you can enter a man's dreams and give him visions. So, dream manipulation. This is a classic George mechanic that he has used across many of his stories, across all different genres. He loves the idea that somebody can contact you in dreams and send messages, and that they're not just random firings of your brain, essentially trying to make sense of your life, that they're real or practical in some way. This is used actually most offensively, I think we've seen, in 7 Times Never Kill Man, where the spoilers alert for that story if you haven't read it. Essentially, the weird little children of the forest like creatures use this kind of dream manipulation in order to get the humans to kill themselves. So, yeah, George likes thinking about this in terms of not just like communication, but also an offensive weapon. But if you think about how it works within A Song of Ice and Fire, if you have a glass candle and you can pop into somebody's dreams, presumably you can see them. You're also contacting their mind directly. But it also let you simulate, if you wanted to, you could be the old gods. You could be R'hllor. You could be their whatever deity they worship. You could be their dead wife, their dead parents, maybe a child that died. You could essentially do whatever you want to this person and give them visions in a very troubling way. And Like I was talking about earlier, we see this with Bloodraven. He is sending visions to Bran very, very early on in Game of Thrones. We also know he's doing it to Jojen Reed. He sends them messages, but also he just talks with them and tries to figure out what's going on. Good God, Guilty Undertaker. No, not an Empire dream of Wangs. Although, actually, no, probably somebody did. You know, you're probably right. That probably happened at some point. Like, you can pull awesome pranks with this. Just like the best pranks. Okay, so the chat is now going wild with different ways that dream invasions have happened and what they are. And I'm going to take a second. Let me sit up and say that I absolutely hate this mechanic of glass candles. I wish George had not put it in. I wish he had just stuck with the first two and done it and left it there. I hate this third one, the dream manipulation thing. I know he loves it. I think it's stupid. And I think it's stupid particularly because it calls into question pretty much the entire books. And it leads to conspiracy theories, and it leads to questioning about what's actually happening. Is something natural? Who's sending it? Why are they sending it? And it's a layer of confusion about what's going on in these books that I really don't like thinking about, and really just enables confounding theories sometimes, because with glass candles being able to invade dreams and give people visions, every dream of every character, you now have to go back and say, was this real? Who is this sent by? Why was it sent? Is it part of a conspiracy? Oh my God, is it the Maesters behind everything? Is it Marwyn? Is this Earth on Nightwalker? Who else has glass candles? Oh my God, the entire world's being run by glass candles. And just... It's the worst. It's a bad mechanic. George should not have done this. Yeah, it's like dream deepfakes. Everything's now in question. And it makes... The Weirwood one is different, I guess, in that it's pretty obvious when the dreams being sent are from Bloodraven, because he like announces himself, sort of, and you know it's him. Basically because they only happen to Bran and Jojen. It's really limited in where these things are going. But the glass candle use does not have any kind of modifier or limitation on which characters or which plots it's touching. It literally could be any of them. And it drives me crazy. I don't like it. I don't like it one bit. Yeah, it essentially like introduces the Illuminati into the books. Introduces conspiracy into every decision. Everything. It's really frustrating. I wish he didn't do this. I kind of hate glass candles for that reason. Like, they're interesting, they're fun to think about, but up to a point. And then you get to the point where I have seen glass candles in like bad fan theories to explain everything and anything. My favorite one is I heard one once where somebody was trying to say that Malario leaving Prince Doran made no sense. That a wife would never leave her husband and her children. It was illogical. Therefore, it was evidence of glass candle manipulation. And it's like, Jesus Christ, that's what these things let people do. Not everybody has them, but anybody could be using them. And any dream could be influenced by them. And it's a really bad mechanic. George, I think you messed this up. I think you should not have done this. It's just one of those things I don't like. I would like to ignore that part exists, but you can't. And now you guys get to live in my misery of thinking about, is everything glass candles? It's I just need to let this out. I let it out. That was it. There are things that George puts into the books that I think are really stupid, and I think this is one of them. Oh, there's whatever your glass candle theory is, I'm sure they are all equally frustrating to deal with. Oh, by the way, yep. About halfway through, make sure you slam that like button. 152 people just hanging out, having a good time, listening to me rant about a stupid fantasy book mechanic that who really cares, but I do because it hurts my head. That's what it does. That's the problem. Rewrite A Song of Ice and Fire, get rid of those. You guys were talking about this earlier. I ignored it in the chat because I was going to get to this, but it's these are basically George's version of the Palantir or the Seeing Stones from Lord of the Rings. They're extremely similar in power and effect. Tolkien made his glass candles as basically crystal balls, and you would essentially touch one, and within it you could see or contact anybody else or wherever they were in the world. So you could just see from one seeing stone to another. You could talk to anybody across great distances. This is basically the thing that allows Sauron and Saruman in the Two Towers in the Lord of the Rings, or just the Lord of Things throughout it, because he started before that, to coordinate their efforts and their to contact each other, and essentially for Saruman to be corrupted by Sauron. It's the Seeing Stones, and George has essentially grafted that in a very in a way I really don't like. Like, the Palantir are better because they're limited to, you have to essentially be touching them. It's like you put it in a room and you have to go up and put your hand on it, essentially. The glass candles are not like that. You can just see wherever and whoever and invade their dreams. Yes, exactly. Guilty Undertaker. It requires a sender and a receiver. Glass candles do not have that restriction. And much like we see from the glass candles, these Palantir, these Seeing Stones, were ancient artifacts made by essentially a fallen race at this point, the Noldor Elves. Probably made by Fëanor, because Fëanor made literally everything in Lord of the Rings. If there's ever like a cool artifact you're wondering about in Lord of the Rings, who made it? The answer is probably Celebrimbor or Fëanor. They made everything. Your candle theory sucks. Yeah, I don't like candle theories. I don't. If I'm reading a theory and it gets to the point where it's talking about like, and then glass candles, my eyes glaze over because I'm like, I don't want to deal with this. I just don't want to deal with this. Oh, super chat here from Sanrixian. Glass candles were a mistake. Agreed. They were a mistake. Put limits on them. Take away the dream things. Let it go, George. I hate it. I hate it. But yes, thank you for the $5. Very generous, Mallory. Although the interesting thing about Palantir is that over time, people essentially forgot how to use them, or they just didn't use them anymore because a lot of them ended up lost. There's stories of some of them ending up in the ocean. Sometimes they just lost track of them in conquests and that kind of thing. And they more or less became like magical heirlooms or like power objects, essentially, like something valuable from a bygone age you don't know how to use anymore. But which is sort of how we see them being used in the Citadel, the description we get with the whole putting them in a vault and you sit before them and it's like you're supposed to learn some kind of lesson. That's sort of what was going on with the Palantir until, you know, they found extra ones. Sauron got his from, I think it's what became Minas Morgul. I think he stole it from there in the conquest. Actually, it was called something else first. Minas Ithil? My Lord of the Rings knowledge is not the strongest. But once you have them, they're extremely powerful. Otherwise, they don't do anything. Renly's Peach, great username. Love a Renly's Peach. Given that they are here, what's the most reasonable glass candle theory you've heard? Actually, this is a good time to swap into that. So are they active and how are they being used in A Song of Ice and Fire? Because they are being used. They are real. They are lit. People are using them. The first one is Quaithe. If you guys remember, because this is not a show thing, this is basically did not happen. Dany sees Quaithe like over and over and over again after she leaves Karth, and in really weird ways, and the interactions are always extremely bizarre, and Dany's left questioning her reality afterwards. And, like, for instance, when she's on the ship outside of Astapor, Quaithe just kind of appears in the ship. And Dany's like, what are you doing here, Quaithe? Are you really here? And she's like, no, not really. And then says some stuff and disappears. Same thing happens at the top of the Great Pyramid Marine. Quaithe appears out of nowhere, starts talking to Dany, disappears, and then Missandei comes up and goes like, what's going on here, guys? Who are you talking to, Dany? And Dany's like, oh, don't worry about it. Just my, like, invisible friend. And Missandei's like, oh, okay, sure. There's no one else here. You're talking to somebody. Are you losing it, Dany? Maybe. I think you might be. That's Missandei thinking. Oh, good call, Maud Mary. The dragon eggs turned to stone were also thought to be useless heirlooms, definitely. Absolutely, George is drawing on the same idea. So, with the Quaithe's repeated messaging about how the glass candles are lit, and this talk about Arathon Nightwalker. Oh, I forgot the other big one. While Dany's in the Dothraki Sea, Quaithe essentially appears to her as like a face made of stars. And it's like, what is going on here? Well, you have to remember that George introduced the glass candles in relation to Dany, and then had Quaithe talk about glass candles. So it's very likely that Quaithe has access to one. And since she also just like offhandedly went like, oh yeah, glass candles, pretty easy to do. Fiery ladder, fiery ladders are hard, not glass candles. I can do that. So this is probably what the main use of these things are. Like, if you're thinking about this and how are they being used back in Valyria before its fall, it may be like this, where you could use one and essentially just appear in a room, kind of like a Star Wars hologram, like you see with the Emperor and Darth Vader. Other characters, but those are the famous examples where the person essentially pops up and you can talk to them, that kind of thing. That's probably the more functional use, other than the weird dream shit. Yeah. This is at least like a better way of it. Yeah, the whisperings of stars, that kind of thing. Very likely that she's using a glass candle, that she's been keeping track of Dany throughout. Although this is one of the examples, if you're assuming that Quaithe is using a glass candle on Dany, especially because most of these interactions come before George's reveal about what they can do through Archmaester Marwyn, you can go back and reread Dany's chapters and say, okay, so after Quaithe, or even before she meets Quaithe, how much of this is glass candle related? How much of this is her messing with Dany's mind? Which is, again, a frustrating question to piece through, especially because Dany does receive many, many, many extremely strange dreams. Like, for instance, she dreams of Drogon before he hatches. She dreams of herself as Rhaegar on a dragon, essentially roasting Robert Baratheon and his armies armored in ice or something like that at the Trident. She's one of those characters that, much like Daeron the Dreamer, or Daeron the Drunkard, yeah, that's the right name, or Dany Sidriner, where she's getting all sorts of weird, prophetic, highly specific dreams throughout her character arc. And now you have to question how many of them were being sent by Quaithe, or since Marwyn's in the picture and he seems very much aware of what's going on with Dany, has Marwyn also been in contact with her? Yes, her Luke Skywalker dream. What's this about Alyssa Farman? Somebody talking shit about Alyssa Farman? Nobody talks shit about Alyssa Farman in my stream. Alyssa Farman is an angel that did nothing wrong. And this is one of those situations where I've talked a lot about like how the Targaryens have their dragon dreams, and like how there's similarities to what they're thinking about. So if you talk about Aegon the Fifth, you talk about Aerys the Second, talk about Aerion Brightflame, you talk about Daeron the Drunkard, also Aemon himself. They all seem to be getting similar sort of visions about dragons and flames, the return of them, something about wildfire maybe, something about a pyre. Just like the same idea being presented to them. And this is something I didn't go into in my video because I don't like it, but you have to question, well, I guess you don't have to. I guess we can just ignore it if you feel like it. But you have to sort of think about, were they being fed these dreams? Was there somebody at that time who has access to a glass candle and is messing with their brains? Which I don't like. Although we know from Daeron that his dreams are highly symbolic, that his seem closer to what Bran receives, or what we see from the Ghost of Highheart. Dany, well, that's kind of like Dany's too. So it's like, are magical dreams and prophecy naturally occurring? Or are they all faked by glass candle users? God, do I not like this line of thought. George, why did you do this? Please, why? Why would you do this to me? Us. Well, I guess me. Mostly me. This is annoying me. Also, one other thing about Dany interacting with Quaithe through glass candles. Dany's awake while all this is happening. This is not... These dreams, I mean, the visions she has of Quaithe talking to her, as far as Dany's concerned, and it seems like from the other characters, she's awake while this is happening. So that's what I was talking about in terms of, like, is it a like a Star Wars hologram thing? Apparently, if you have a glass candle, you can just sort of appear to somebody out of thin air. Yeah, here we go. Scott LaRock talking. I wonder if Bloodraven made Euron crazy because he couldn't handle Bloodraven in his head. Yeah, glass candles have that kind of fun effect where now you're questioning everything. Is everything Bloodraven? Maybe. It could be. And then, actually, I think this is probably a good time to talk about some patron questions. So Eric Foreg, one of my patrons and frequent questioners, he says, why was Sam being watched in the first place? How long has Sam been spied on? Did Marwyn take a glass candle with him on the boat? So I didn't really touch on this yet, but Marwyn is aware Sam is coming long ahead of time because he's apparently been watching Sam via the glass candle in his office. The whole way, either from the wall or at least from Braavos. So he knows that he's with Aemon. He knows what news he's going to bring, which is why Sam is like, I have all this important stuff to say. And Marwyn's like, got it already. Glass candle. Don't care. I'm just going to take your boat and your Aemon in a rum cask and all your books and just peace the hell out. Essentially, like, this interaction is really fast. Marwyn says, I don't need anything from you, Sam. Get out of my face. I'm leaving. Taking your boat, taking your friend, and I'm out of here. So why was Sam being watched in the first place? This has led some to question if Marwyn was watching Aemon for quite a long time, or if he was using a glass candle to invade his dreams in some kind of weird way. Because Marwyn does talk about Aemon quite a lot, and he thinks about how the rest of the Citadel is a bunch of sheeps, and they should have, by rights, essentially Aemon should have been an Archmaester with the amount of knowledge and what he's contributed to the knowledge of the organization. And he goes into the whole thing about how, like, there's a conspiracy. The Maesters are trying to make sure that Aemon never ends up in a seat of power, that kind of stuff. And with the glass candle involved, you have to think to yourself, well, maybe? Or is this... Has Marwyn been watching Aemon's dreams? And essentially, is this what Aemon thinks? Therefore, that's what Marwyn thinks. It also raises the question, if he's the only one that has one lit in the Citadel, that's the only one we do see lit, is he using it to spy on the other Archmaesters? Is he watching council rooms that he's not supposed to, that he's not invited into? Like, is he seeing private conversations, kind of like Varys or Littlefinger do, where they have ears everywhere, but Marwyn's ears are literally magic. It also raises a question about, like, what does Marwyn actually want? What is he doing? He wants to go to Daenerys, basically, to tutor her, which is what Aemon thought the Citadel should do anyway. So Marwyn may have been watching during that time, or have looked into Aemon's thoughts and realized that's what he wants, and that's what he's going to do now. Oh yeah, please do smash the like button. Thank you, Chrissy, very much. 34 away from a silly hat for the rest of the stream. I would guess the way that Marwyn focuses in on Aemon, that he's probably been watching him for quite a long time, at least since reports started coming in that the others were back. Unlike most other characters, Marwyn doesn't have to wait for anybody to show up and tell him. He can just, after he could light it after Dany's dragons hatched, he could just go look at the wall and be like, okay, so what's going on there? Oh, this does bring up the question of barriers. So, if they can see everywhere, like, can they actually? Like, for instance, Braavos was the secret city that Valyria could not find, or did not find, for quite a long time. If they have glass candles and they can see everywhere, why couldn't they find these escaped slaves? Why couldn't they figure out that there is this thriving merchant city developing right underneath their nose? One possibility is they did know and they didn't care. But that doesn't seem like the Valyrians. They're pretty okay with killing and enslaving and getting and essentially destroying civilizations to help themselves out. So it leads you to the question, is there something about Braavos that made them unable to be seen? George does love the idea of, like, magical barriers and ways of blocking magic, that kind of thing. So some have speculated, I think it was Maester Mary that wrote about Braavos quite a bit, and that maybe there's something about, like, the mists or the fogs around them, or the way that it's built, or something about, I don't know, if there's something about Braavos and where it's built specifically does not let glass candles go into them, or it shields them somehow. It would be interesting if there were natural barriers or some ways around this power. Another thing to think about is the fact that quite a lot of the magical characters in the story do wear masks. So Quaitha Shadowbinder wears a mask. Most Shadowbinders, we learn from Ashai, all wear masks. There's, what's her name? The Woods Witch that wears a weirwood mask. The Archmaesters themselves wear masks and have rods made of metal. So is this sort of an idea that George is drawing from, like X-Men? Are these supposed to be like Magneto's helmet to stop Professor X? It would be very much unlike George to put in something this powerful with no way of stopping it. Like, it'd be super interesting if it's actually the if the Archmaesters wear these masks specifically to guard themselves from mind invasion. Yes, those masked peeps did see the future of the Rona, but you know, when there's so much psychic manipulation, and George is such a big fan of comics, and particularly like the X-Men, I would not be surprised if he designed these things for particular magic characters in a way that stops psychic invasions. Oh, super chat here from Amy Blackfire. Thank you, Amy. Thank you for $5. Is there something other than the glass candles you wish Martin had left out? Also, click like for the hat. So, something else in A Song of Ice and Fire that bugs me that I wish he had not put into the narrative. Something that bugs me as much as glass candles do. good question. I'll have to think about that one. I'll think about it while I'm talking. I'll try and come back to it. I mean, there's lots of like arcs and characters and like twists in the story that I'm not a huge fan of, but like something in particular that I wish he had just like erased from the story that never had a chance to be in it. You're not subbed to Maester Mary's channel? What the hell? Who's not subbed Up From Under Winterfell? Or also their awesome podcast, Learned Hands. That's a good one too. Trying to think of like, is there some magical thing that I wish like didn't exist? I'll have to come back to it. I can't think of it off my head. So what was I talking about? I was talking about, oh yeah, barriers and how you could stop it. So there's also obviously the fused black stone all over the place. There's the oily black stone that exists in certain places. There's the weird Lovecraftian statues and stuff like that all over the place. That apparently, I mean, there's the wall itself, which seems to act as some sort of barrier between Jon and Ghost when it's between them. It's explicitly said that the wall somehow keeps the others out. There's also the barrier around Bloodraven's cave. There's apparently one around Storm's End, which means that Melisandre has to go underneath the walls. That's why Davos has to go help her. She can't just send a shadow baby through the wall. She has to be within them. So I would guess, like all these things, that George has included in some way his story that you can combat glass candles, and especially within the Valyrians themselves, because they would literally know how it works. It would be kind of chaos if all Valyrians at all times were just like messing with each other's dreams and that kind of thing. So there must be some way of stopping it, just on a convenience level. At least for like the rich and powerful, that kind of thing. Oh, there are a lot of podcasts, but they're a Song of Ice and Fire law podcast. Very interesting. Are the masks used now for Archmaesters? It seems to be kind of ceremonial, but it's also like glass candles are like not really a thing anymore. So maybe in the past that's what they were supposed to do. Maybe the Shadowbinders masks are supposed to do that kind of thing. Or perhaps if you're wearing one of a certain kind, then like maybe the glass candles can't penetrate through them and like and let people spy on you. There must be some way to screen calls. You have to be able to, if you have like a glass candle, you have to be some way of saying no, like get away. Yeah, something like Dreadfort Lever says counter spells. Yeah, something like that. What were the rods originally for? Looking cool. What else is having a cool metal rod for? Just walking down the street, maybe beating novices with it. That kind of cool thing. Those are all cool things. Let's see here. Oh, from Twitter, the Weirwood Throne, otherwise known as Curtsy While You Tweet, says, glass candles are obsidian fused with dragon blood. The dragon blood is the connection. Purple candles, purple eyes. They aren't really purple candles, they're black candles, but glass candles function like a weird net for the Valyrians until they found the real thing. I would guess that they work on very much the same mechanics. George very much enjoys linking his magical things, and essentially people just have different ways of interacting with them, but the concept is the same between them. Yeah, that would make some kind of sense. If like dragon blood or blood sacrifice or something went into making of the obsidian or the glass candles, where you turn what is essentially a neat obsidian sculpture into a powerful magical object. Gonna check PayPal real fast. Okay, here we go. But yeah, it seems like Valyrian steel. If you talk about the stories of like Nissa and Azor Ahai, and also the weirdness that goes on with Tobo Mott, and how one of the cultures that still knows how to work Valyrian steel is in Qohor, which is famous for blood sacrifice being a part of their religion to the black goat, I think it is. I would not be surprised in the least if once again Valyrians found some way to introduce the importance of blood sacrifice in some way to making their magical coolness. Two glass candles are trying to contact you. Oh, interesting. Is there a magical call waiting? Maybe both of them would just appear at the same time and you'd be like, hey, how's it going? Or if they could see each other. Oh man. Or what if it's like, what if you're Valyrian and you have multiple wives, or multiple girlfriends, they don't know each other yet, and they both call you on the glass candle at the same time. The drama that could happen. Oh no. I think it's an open question though, whether or not the holograms or whatever are like literally visible, or if they're invisible only within the mind of the person who's being contacted. I would guess it's just within their mind. Like, I don't think that if Missandei walked up while Quaithe was still there, she would see her. Oh, actually, speaking of, got a PayPal donation from June S. $10, no message, but thank you, June. That's super generous. I really appreciate it. Oh, glass candle based soap operas. This is the content we need. George, where is this? I don't want to see like the entire Valyrian Empire. I just want to see like the shenanigans of one Valyrian fire mage trying to keep his love life together. What would be a good name for like a Valyrian soap opera or something like that? That'd be pretty interesting. That's the whole plot of the House of the Dragon? Oh man. Oh, here we go. Here come the puns. All my candles, flame of our lives, blaze of our lives, hearts fires. Ooh, days of our dragons. I like these. Keep them coming. As the glass candle burns. One heart trio. Married with candles. Oh, these are perfect. This is like Maester Monthly content right here. This is why Valyria fell. You know what? Like, seriously, it probably is like not unrelated that they had tons of magic and they were doofuses about using it sometimes, and just like the most self-centered, narcissistic dicks in the world. And that's what caused them to fall. Not necessarily like soap operas. Do you think glass candles use the moon to communicate because the moon is a satellite? No and no. Absolutely not. Because if that were true, then when the moon's not visible, then they wouldn't work. You think about triangulation. Like, if Westeros is here, and you're on this side, and the moon's over here, then the glass candles wouldn't work. It doesn't. Yeah, that's not true. Everybody loves the moon. Pretty Little Liars. Yeah, they're basically Valyrians, right? The moon is a gunman. Oh my goodness. So let's go. With that brief detour, let's go back to. Yeah, a second. So where else are glass candles being used? And there's this mysterious character named Earthon Nightwalker. Ooh, a very spooky name. Who is Earthon Nightwalker? Literally no idea. Earthon Nightwalker, his house is mentioned. Nothing about who he is, where he is. Is it like a house in terms of like a Westerosi house? Is it literally a house? Is it in Karth? Don't know. It's just kind of mentioned over and over again that glass candles are burning in his house. There has been quite a lot of speculation, though, that Earthon is actually a Ironborn name. In particular, I believe it's a... Actually, you guys beat me to this. I think it's a Greyjoy name as well. And this has created the theory that Earthon Nightwalker is a pseudonym for the ultimate dramatic magical boy Euron Greyjoy. That he is essentially, during his exile from the Iron Islands, has taken up this pseudonym within Karth and using the wealth from his pirating to position himself as like a noble and buy glass candles and all these other kind of weird things. Oh yeah, is it Earthon Goodbrother? Hang on a second. Yep, Earthon Goodbrother, you're right. Not a Greyjoy, a Goodbrother. It's also introduced that the story of Earthon Goodbrother is a Ironborn tyrannical king that shows up after the death of the king, or I think he kills the king, I'm not sure which, and calls a king's moot while claimants are not there, and intimidates and kills people to make sure that he ends up sitting on the seastone chair. But then the claimants who were missing because they were out reaving and raiding while all this happened shows up, and Earthon in his brutality gets killed by his captains, and a new king's moot happens, and it's brought up, I think, by Asha Greyjoy that this is or Aaron, I forget which, that this is a way that, like, since Theon's a legal claimant to the current king's moot that Euron won, that these are parallel stories, and people have made the jump from this story being a parallel to Euron in the current story, that maybe the Earthon is Euron essentially flexing that he knows the story and that he's specifically trying to be Earthon Goodbrother or Earthon Bad Brother, as he's often known. The Nightwalker part essentially being that he is a very dramatic, magical, spooky boy, and Nightwalker is just like kind of his thing. It's dark. It's, I don't know. It just sounds magical and dramatic, and that's kind of what Euron's all about with the silence. Oh, by the way, 13 more likes, you guys. And then we'll put on a super cool wizard hat for the rest of the stream. So, if Earthon Nightwalker is... Actually, the names even sound right. Earthon and Euron. They have similar kind of sound to them. If that is the same character, if Earthon Nightwalker is Euron Greyjoy, and he has glass candles and they're burning, so that raises the question then, well, if we see how Quaithe is using them, and we know how Marwyn's using them to watch Sam, who exactly is... How is Euron using these burning glass candles if he has them? So, there's a few things that this would clear up about Euron. For one thing, almost all of his plans seem to work out, like, really, really well. And he doesn't seem like he's putting in a ton of strategy. They just kind of... He makes these grand plans and he shows up and they always work. Well, if he's using glass candles in terms of spying and figuring out where weaknesses are and essentially scouting ahead of time, that would make a lot of sense for why everything is coming up Euron's way. He's using literal magic, like magical satellites, essentially, to figure it out. Oh, good call from Yuki Guni. Explains how he's able to get the Valyrian steel armor and dragon binder too. Exactly. So Valyria is essentially a super dangerous place, and he said he's walking to Valyria, and he came back with his Valyrian steel armor, and he got Dragonbinder, and everyone's like, well, that's suicide. Nobody walks out of Valyria. Well, if you're not sitting there with a glass candle, then it's not quite as dangerous, because he doesn't have to search. He can just see where stuff is and then go to it, and also see like where dangers are, or where whatever it is that slashed Valyrian the Black Dread when he was there and came back. Just like avoid those things. So it makes that story much more plausible. Oh yeah, Sanrixian's here for the spooky magic boys. Of course you are. This is your jam. Yeah, so it makes that story way more plausible for how it happened. He scouted it ahead of time. Also, how else could he be using them? Well, there's also the weirdness that he supposedly hired the Faceless Men to kill Balon Greyjoy, and it seems like Jack and Hagar did it. But it's not just that Balon dies and then Euron shows up, and it's like during the Kingsmoon or something like that. He shows up the next day. He knows exactly when the hit is happening, and he shows up at the perfect time when nobody's around and claims the Seastone Chair, just like Earthon Bad Brother did, and uses essentially that uses the surprise of his arrival as a tool to push himself forwards to becoming the King of the Iron Islands. Well, either that's really good planning and he's really lucky, or he literally was watching Jaqen while it was happening and knew when he was going to be there and was keeping tabs on him, and then showed up at the exact right moment for it to work. That would make a lot more sense for how he's doing this. Because right now it looks like he's got otherworldly, like, abilities of knowing when things are going to happen and timing. Well, it's not otherworldly if you have an object that lets you see things from like miles or continents away. Yes, good call by Guilty Undertaker. Faceless Men also seem to know things they shouldn't be able to know. Dun, dun, dun. Do they have glass candles? Maybe. It seems like Euron might. I believe Balon dies after Arya leaves. After Jaqen leaves Arya. I think the timeline people have plotted out that they go to Harrenhal together, Jaqen disappears, Balon dies, and then he pops up in Old Town. And that it's essentially like he's making a loop from King's Landing down to Old Town. They're also getting info from the faces, because that's a thing that can happen. But the other one that would explain... Oh, okay. You guys slam that like button. Thank you very much. 150 likes. Remember, 175 for the rest of the stream. I'll put on my Germ hat, which has the cool turtle on it. But yeah, it's magic hat time. And not the beer, although the beer is tasty. No! I dropped Bulbasaur, guys. I dropped him. Rip Bulbasaur. F in chat for Bulbasaur. Speaking of Saruman and Lord of the Rings, got my Gandalf hat going. Hey, Timar. Fresh off work, got to catch Joe. Glad you were able to show up this afternoon. Yes, you guys all helped. This was a team effort making me put on a silly hat. Go team. Go team magician. Steph Line, how's my vegetable garden going? Growing strong? Check it out on Twitter. I posted an update before the stream. I went out and looked at them. 2-minute video, just went over what's growing, what's going wrong, that kind of stuff. Rip Bulbasaur. So, like I was saying, what's the other use and the other thing that explains if Euron has a glass candle? And that is, why is Daenerys Targaryen dreaming about Euron goddamn Greyjoy all the time? Why is she seeing him on a prow of a ship with a gray smile, looking like a corpse? Why is there that weird dream where she gets she's having sex with Hizdar and then it turns into somebody else and he has an ice stick or something like that? Why is this happening? Well, thinking about dream manipulation and thinking about the fact that Euron is obsessed with Daenerys and very much wants to marry her and wants to take her dragons, I would not be shocked in the slightest if Euron Greyjoy had his glass candle and, much like Marwyn, was using it to keep tabs on, the woman with the dragons over in Essos, especially since there's no like distance that's too far or anything like that. He can just see anywhere. Hey, Lady Leaf, how's it going? Sorry, no problems being late. Oh, super chat here from Kevin Isles. I guess that's how you're going to pronounce that. $5, very generous. Thank you so much, Kevin. No message. If you have one to shoot in the chat or a question, I'll try and answer it. Yeah, so yeah, that would make a lot of sense. Why is Dany constantly dreaming about Euron Greyjoy? Well, if he's forcing her to dream about him in some sort of weird dream manipulation to plant himself in her consciousness to make sure that when they eventually meet, she recognizes him and has a particular reaction to him, that is definitely a way you could use the glass candle dream manipulation mode on it. Euron's dreams are gross. Let's ask Porcoin about that. What does Euron Greyjoy dream about? Probably murdering everyone around him and sitting on a bunch of bones. A throne of bones. There we go. What's going on with parsnips? What? Oh, another super chat from Kevin. Another $10. Thank you, man. Really appreciate it. Very generous. Oh, good call from Luminous Rain. The fact that Euron looks like a skeleton is super Palantir too, because not even Sauron could hide his dark intentions from the visions. Yeah, that's one thing. Sauron was very good at manipulation, kind of like Euron, and he was excellent at changing his appearance and his behavior so that nobody knew who he was, but the Palantir had a way of exposing who you really were and your true heart, basically. So, oh, a bunch of questions coming from Kevin. Here we go. If Euron does have a glass candle, we also know that he's been drinking Shave the Evening, which can enhance visions. So do the two thongs. I'm going to say that's things. I'm hoping Euron doesn't wear two thongs, but you never know. Maybe he's a very fancy lad. Do the two things compound? Does he have a super glass candle vision since he's combining with other magic? You know who wears thongs? Daario Naharis. Daario Naharis wears banana hammocks. You know it, and I know it. Daario Naharis wants everybody to know that. Mallory, do you think you could draw that? Thank you. Thank you. So to actually answer the question, are those two essentially stacking? So Shade and Evening is essentially Esperon from Night Flyers and from the Thousand Worlds universe, where it's the substance that when you drink it or when you take it, it makes your psychic powers, latent psychic powers, whatever they are, just completely go out of control. It makes it so that if you're like a 2 on the scale of 10, it makes your 2 go to a 20 out of 10. It like opens your mind. I imagine this is some sort of reference to George's drug use when he was younger, or maybe not when he's younger. Something like acid or like a mind-opening substance. So, if Euron's drinking Shave the Evening, essentially Esperon, which is making his psychic powers, whatever they are, way more powerful, and he's using a glass candle, do those interact in some way? They might. Like, for instance, Dany in her dreams of Euron, like, those are very vivid. And it's not like when Bloodraven does it, where he appears as a three-eyed raven, or other characters like Quaithe, where her face is like, a face of stars, or she appears holographically. Like, Dany can feel Euron. So maybe in some way that that may be very possible that he's found a way to enhance the connection he can use the glass candles for. Like, instead of just like vision, maybe it's something like actually, this is gonna make some people mad, but maybe it's like from The Last Jedi, when the Force thing where Rey and Kylo were able to touch each other. Maybe Euron's going for something like that. Wait, what did Jay Moore say? Where's Ardengarden made of tongues? Yeah, that's gross. That is, I agree with the chat. That's gross, Jay. Oh, hedgehogs and cats are life. Thank you for doing this stream tonight, Joe Magician. I just got dumped. I really need some nerd material tonight. Oh, that sucks, buddy. Hope things turn around. Glad I could provide a little respite for you. That's really crappy. Luckily, this is what we all love this fantasy books for: escapism. Excellent advice there from Luminous Rain. Dump them right back. Yeah, that'll get them. 18 more likes. We got 184 people watching, so slam that like button, you guys. Thanks for answering my question, says Kevin Isles. First time I've caught you live, so I wanted to be generous. Hey, I really appreciate it. That's I'm glad you finally got to catch me live. Misspoke there. Let's see here. Luminous Rain says Blood Raven is the face in the tree, not the crow. Oh god, we're not doing this. Blood Raven is all those things. Yeah, Mallory, I think you have to draw Dario's thong. Does his thong also have a mustache? These are good questions. History Master 1, tell me, how does Dragonhorn work? If it was made in Valyria, where thousands of dragons lived, does it attract dragon riders or all dragons near it? So, how does Dragonbinder work? So the horn that Euron brings back, he blows at the King's Moot, and weird things happen. Victarion's going to blow it at the Battle of Fire, and he thinks it's going to make him tame a dragon. So, what does it actually do? Well, when Euron blows it, well, he doesn't blow it. He has one of his men blow it. And when he does, it essentially makes everyone very susceptible to, like, Euron's general thing. Like, everyone's super on board with him afterwards. He has a lot of support. People are cheering. It's amazing. And then afterwards, people sort of snap out of it, like, oh, what the hell was that? Like, why did we elect Euron? This is stupid. We're like invading the Shield Isles. Like, this isn't what we wanted. We wanted something else. Like, very quickly, his support is dwindling. And even Roderick the Reader is calling him out. Mallory, you know you want to draw that. So what does it do? I think it essentially what it does is when you blow the horn, it has a magical ability to get people to do what you want. Because the Valyrians had the ability to control dragons, but one thing they had trouble controlling was slaves. Every slave civilization ever has had a problem with slave revolts. And especially when there were many more slaves in Valyria than there were Valyrians. So maybe Dragonbinder was essentially like a way of pacifying upset slaves or something like that, or getting them to do dangerous things they didn't want to. Like, they were sending them down the volcanoes for mining. Maybe Dragonbinder had some kind of effect with that. So that would be my guess for Dragonbinder. George has set it up pretty heavily through Victarion that he thinks it will make him tame a dragon, and I would be surprised if it works that way, because Victarion is always wrong, and Victarion's an idiot. So if Victarion thinks a thing, it's probably wrong. That's a hard and fast rule you can deal with. There's a lot of puns today, and a lot of innuendos. Don't really know why. Yeah, like an empathy drug or something like that. I think that's what it does. That's the only effect we've seen it do, where everyone's like, yeah, Euron's the best. And they're like, what the fuck did we do? Why did we elect this guy? He's like this weird, dramatic weirdo who's very brutal and killed a bunch of people. He gave us some gold. That was great. But like, what else did he do? Not that much. That's what I'm saying. Oh, that reminds me. After the stream at 5 o'clock, Radio Westeros is going live with, I think it's KW Dent again, but they're talking about Sandor Clegane. I forget what the person is. Yeah, this is a very horned up stream, apparently. The Dragon Horn stream. Oh yeah, so Earthon Nightwalker. So that would make a lot of sense. A lot of the weird things about Euron are totally explained by the fact that he's hiding a glass candle that nobody knows about. And the third person that a lot of people suspect may have a glass candle, other than those already listed, is Leighton Hightower and Mad Melora, his daughter. So they've essentially been up in the High Tower for years and haven't come down. And it's talked about that they are steeped in sorcery and that they're doing weird things, reading scrolls and books and whatever, but they're also keeping control of the High Tower. Now, that's not necessarily impossible. Like, you don't have to walk around Old Town to be the lord of it. But specifically when you're talking about a place that has 3 glass candles that we know about, and the novices have seen them, so does Leighton have the 4th one? Because remember, I said at the beginning, there's 4 glass candles at the Citadel, 3 black and 1 green. We haven't seen the green one. That one's missing. Or at least not missing, it has not appeared in the narrative yet. So perhaps the High Towers, who were called the Greens during the Dance of the Dragons, have the green glass candle. Maybe that's theirs. And perhaps Lord Leighton and Mad Melora are essentially up there just checking on what's going on in Westeros, using that as their decision-making for whether or not they enter conflicts, which they have not. They've essentially stayed out of everything. That's really hard to do. It's really difficult for a lord to find himself not involved in one of these mega wars ever. But the High Towers have managed it, and they managed to stay on the good side of everybody. A glass candle would make some sense, especially, again, Old Town, the High Tower. The High Tower itself kind of looks like a glass candle. Oh, Mallory's actually drawing it. This is lovely. I'm sure this will be amazing. Although it'd be kind of funny if you're thinking about, like, okay, does Euron have a glass candle, and also does Leighton have a glass candle? Well, a lot of people think Euron's going to Old Town to sack it. So does Leighton know that already? Has he been keeping tabs on Euron? Has Euron been keeping tabs on him? Does the fused black fortress thing at the bottom of the High Tower protect them somehow? Kind of like you see with different other mega structures. Perhaps. It could be. Oh yes, thank you for dropping the stones, Chrissy. You are, as always, a superstar. You are the best. Everyone say thank you to Chrissy Stones if you wouldn't mind. She's the best mod. So that would be an interesting one. It at least lines up in terms of proximity and hinting and just kind of some smaller details that might line up if you want them to. It'd make a lot more sense if Leighton was looking at a glass candle and that's what he's been doing rather than studying the same books over and over again. There's always been a joke that, like, Lord Leighton's sitting up there with a book of ancestry and he's just like continually going down the different Targaryen trees that's going like, okay, so I have to make sure I don't fight any Targaryens. And he's just like, okay, so what happened to Egg's younger sister? Okay, so she married this guy. This is what happened to those kids. This makes more sense as a character trait or as a thing he has. Although it'd be really funny if he doesn't. And Euron's going to smack him around with his. Also a patron question from Eric Forik. He says, how will the more conventional members of the Citadel react when they learn the glass candles are functioning? So this is a thing that came up in the Pate prologue, where most of the other novices did not know that Marwyn had lit a candle and kind of don't believe Lazy Leo that Marwyn has done it. But it doesn't seem to be much of a secret. It's just sitting there in Marwyn's office. But also Marwyn's kind of the black sheep of the Citadel, where they don't really like him. So it may be possible that he has not spread it around too much, or that nobody believes him he's actually done it. So what will happen when the glass candle is functioning? So Marwyn has raised the possibility that the Citadel murders its own members who essentially go against the orthodoxy of the Citadel. So, but he also got up and left, but he didn't take his glass candle with him. He just left. He left it there. So he doesn't seem too concerned that people are going to notice he has a glass candle lit. If the other Citadel members notice or even start caring, I'm guessing the Archmaesters, and they would try and use it and see what happens. But since it doesn't seem like any of them know how to work it, or they have not publicly, then whatever they do is essentially going to be like exploration, trying to figure out the mechanics of how the glass candle works. Meanwhile, Euron is bearing down with a fleet of Ironborn to sack the city. So it may be too late that they learn how to use it and see the crow's eye coming for them. Will Sam take it? Good question. The show had Sam Tarly take Heartsbane, his father's sword. If he takes a glass candle, that would be interesting. This is one of those weird things to think about. Like, what is the purpose of this? Where's George going with these things? Like, why are they important? Because he's already empowered Bran with powers that are equal to or more powerful than the glass candle. So why do you need this? And more importantly, if Sam takes it, will he learn how to light it? And how will that be useful in some way? There's been ideas before that, like, it said that maybe Valyrian steel has some part of, it's called dragon steel. So some have wondered if it has obsidian in it, and that's one of the properties that makes it so special. Would a Valyrian steel sword function the same way? Like, if you lit it on fire, like Lightbringer, could you use it in a similar way? That is interesting speculation. I'm not really sure. It's Sam's the only really one that would take it that would have any difference, and I'm not really sure, because how exactly would this be useful to him as a character? Is he going back to the Wall? Is he going to King's Landing or something like that? He's definitely not following Marwyn. Is he going to use it to check up on Jon? Is he just going to watch Jon creepily from the south? Oh, Daisy showed up 105 minutes late. Or you're just in time for another cool hat if you slam that like button. There has to be something that Sam needs to see using it that makes its inclusion worthwhile. And George has gone out of his way in A Feast for Crows for letting us all know that these things are important and how they work. So there must be something going on here. There must be some reason he's telling us this, because the Pate thing just is background. The Samwell 5 is a demonstration on how it works. So much like where a lot of people think the Second Life tutorial through Varamir Sixskins is to tell us about what's going to happen to Jon, then this should have some kind of impact going forwards. Let me be also late. Why is everybody late today? What are you guys all doing? Come on. Oh, hat switch? All right. We only got 10 minutes left. There we go. turtle pin and everything. Oh, Amy. Studying while watching this. Did you make any friends, Amy, or did you just meet podcast hosts? Boom. Oh, Sam seeing the Ironborn attack would be interesting. I imagine it would have to be something to do with the others. That maybe the glass candle is integral in some way in convincing somebody that the others are an important threat, because the White Hunt is stupid. The White Hunt was dumb. There has to be some other way to convince the South that the North is under assault. Maybe it's used to show Dany what's going on beyond the wall. That would at least be something. That would be an interesting use of it. Although, if Dany is shown how to use it, would she then question everything going on in her life? Oh no, like we did earlier in the stream. How many dreams were real? Oh, I thought of something. Okay, so Amy asked earlier in the super chat, what would I remove from the story in order to, that I wish Martin had not put in? And that is not the person, not Myronese, not Ashea, but the Myronese not itself. That George should have moved Dany's story along quicker than he did. That she should probably be on her way to Westeros in a Dance with Dragons, maybe onto Volantis or something like that. I understand why he put it in. I understand that he wanted to show Dany struggling with rulership and having to balance her ideals versus practicalities. Her learning to actually govern people that don't like her, which is probably going to happen in Westeros too. That this is important groundwork for her discovering this identity of fire and blood, and dragons plant no trees, and balance that against Misa. Like, I get the point of it. I don't think it's very good. And I think he could have done that while also moving Dany's story west a lot faster. Yeah, that's the thing I would want to remove. I think the Myronese knot, as it's printed, is not very good. I mean, I like Quentin's story. Barristan's is fine. You could have done better things, George, and still kept those alive. Like, for instance, Quentin is in Volantis. You could have maybe had this plot happen in Volantis as she's moving west. It's that would be my my pick. I think we're all in agreement on that one. That George could have moved that plot along while still keeping intact the lessons he wanted Dany to learn and the struggles she's going through. Oh, Mallory apparently finished her thing. Is this on Twitter? What is the point of the Quentin chapters? Asked Freestyle Fakiri. I would look up Poor Quentin's blog. Google Poor Quentin and Quentin Martell. He has done an amazing series of essays talking about how Quentin Martell is a deconstruction of the heroic arc. Oh my god, she did do it. Good lord, there's even... Okay. Everyone say thank you to Mallory for this amazing, amazing picture. Wow. That is something. Hang on a second. Let me see if I can pull this up on screen. Let me see if I can do display capture. There it is. Boom. Look at that. Beautiful, Mallory. Dario cares about his mom? Is this a thing? Wow, this is the new beautiful Dario art we all need. Oh, even got his signature creepy smile. Oh, you care. What a way to end a stream. Oh no, what did I do with the... Okay, there's the chat. Horrified yet aroused by Daario is the correct reaction he wants you to have. That is his whole thing. If you guys have anything else I didn't get to, something I didn't see in the chat, we got a few minutes left here. Just like throw them out, tag me, or super chats or whatever if you feel like it. So yeah. At 5 o'clock, an hour after we end, Radio Westeros will be going live talking about Sandor Clegane. So that'll be something definitely to check out. Lady Gwyn was on the channel a few weeks ago now. We were talking about Lyanna Stark. Maybe asking for questions about glass candles is a little foolish after showing the Daario ass. And just that amazing picture. Actually, who was it that had the problem with the breakup? The hedgehogs and cats are life. Hopefully Daario cheered you up. Oh, there's actually a question before the stream started. Mary Ann Hadley said, how many glass candles there are? I would guess that there's... So Citadel has 4. Earthon Nightwalker has at least 1. Quaithe might have 1, but she might be using that one. But let's say Quaithe has 1, so that's 6. If you're assuming that Leighton Hightower has, if he has one, it's probably one of the Citadels. So there's probably 6 active out there that we know about. There may be more. I would expect more in Valyria or Essos. In the ruins of Valyria, I bet, since these things seem to be used basically like phones, I bet throughout Valyria there's just some hanging out. Actually, maybe that's where Euron found one. Maybe he went to Valyria, found one, and was like, holy shit, this is amazing. Yes, good call, Guilty Undertaker. 7 glass candles for the 7 Palantir. That would make a lot of sense if George was trying to draw that comparison, which he definitely is. What about Littlefinger? Does Littlefinger have a glass candle? No. Littlefinger has a traditional, non-magical information gathering system, just like Varys. It's whispers and gossip and paying off the right people. That's what he's got. Dornish Dame says, if glass candles have been around for 100 years, do you think they were part of Aerys the First and Bloodraven's magical studies? I would be surprised if they didn't try and study them, especially Bloodraven, considering he can travel incognito. Maybe he pulled a Sauron and showed up at the Citadel pretending to be someone other than himself to have a look at them. Oberyn Martell probably knew something about glass candles. It's also interesting that one of his daughters, Alaris or Sorella Sand, is working for Maester Marwyn. So she may be investigating the glass candles that Oberyn knew about. It would certainly be, they're one of the few relics of Valyria that still exist, and they're in Westeros. So for characters that are studying magic and prophecy, glass candles would be definitely something you'd want to look at. Do glass candles need the burning of dragons' fire, aka dragon magics, to work? Hence why some no dragons are back. I would guess that's the implication that you get from Xaro, and also from Quaithe, that the things that are listed along with the glass candles burning all have to do with Dany somehow. And you get the same from the alchemists, who basically say like, oh, well, I mean, are there dragons back? Have you heard anything about them? Because our spells are working way better. And the example of the guy from Karth with the fiery ladder, Quaithe essentially says that all of a sudden his powers are massively increased. Melisandre says much the same. So I would guess that a glass candle burning has to do with living dragons in the world, or at least in a proximity. There's been suggestions for a long time in the books, and especially in like the World of Ice and Fire, that there may be dragons elsewhere. Like there may be some in Valyria. There's definitely something huge that hurt Balerion the Black Dread when he disappeared with the Rhea Targaryen. There's also suggestions that in the Shadowlands near Shai, that there are essentially caves with dragon eggs sitting in them. But they are definitely like that kind of thing. Oh, good call, Goatee Undertaker. I did not think about that. Glass candles burn without being consumed, so like the burning bush in the Bible. Great call. That's an excellent connection. Chef's kiss. Elise Britta or Jacobs, I love the hat. Thank you. It's actually surprisingly comfy. I just wish the bill was longer. I'm an American, so I grew up wearing baseball hats and playing baseball and all that kind of stuff. So this is like weirdly pointless. Like, what is the point of this thing? Longer bill. Like a duck. Duck and egg. Nailed it. Oh, are there 12 Palantir, Adrian Burchell? I know that there originally were a lot more. I'm not sure how many survived to the current times in Lord of the Rings. There's the 2 that Sauron and Saruman have, and I'm not really sure how many more. Longer bill wouldn't work this hat? Oh, is it because it's a sailor's hat? So it wouldn't fly off your head? Yeah, that makes sense. You have officially died. Rip in peace, Jess. All right, so I think that's probably about it for today. I wanted to go back and thank everybody that sent super chats. So Sanrixian, Amy Blackfire, Kevin Eels, something like that, who showed up for the first time, and also Danny McKay, Gerald L, and June S, who sent super chats in by PayPal. So I really appreciate it. You guys have a great Saturday. And also, by the way, I don't know if you guys know this, but I do Maester Monthly, and we're supposedly recording another episode this afternoon. So get ready for more silliness, basically. And Isles. Okay. Yeah, we're recording that this afternoon. So expected arrival for that one, given when our last one came out. Give it a year and a half and we'll probably release it, but we'll get there. So we're supposedly recording an episode. Let's see if we get everybody together and technology works. So yeah, have a great afternoon, everybody. I'll be watching Radio Westeros at 5 with Sandor Clegane. Links in the chat. Coming out soon will be the 5-year gap plus Who's the Tattered Prince videos, so look out for that. And I'll see you on Tuesdays for Crusader Kings 3 and Saturdays for more Quaranstreams. Maybe I'll change the name at some point. Hopefully COVID will be done at some point. But anyway,